Hello, this is feedback for Teodora and Emilia for the speaking listening that we did on Tuesday. So, Emilia, you were student A and you started with all the questions first. The very first part of the test was about the discussion, and your topic with Teodora was on fashion. You started the conversation by asking, "Are you interested in fashion?" Teodora answered, and you started the conversation in a very good manner. Emilia, you spoke about your own opinion. You mentioned a few examples of places you like to go and do your shopping, bench, next, etc. So you gave some examples, and that's really, really powerful and quite helpful. Teodora, you gave your opinion when you were giving your answer, and you also gave the reason to your opinion, which was really good. And then when you wanted to pass the conversation over to Emilia, at one point you said, "Do you tell me some of your favorite brand?" I think instead of "do you tell me," you wanted to say "can you tell me?" Let's remember that we're level 1, and at level 1 the examiner expects that we form the present simple question accurately. If we make little slips, little mistakes in a difficult passive tense or in a very advanced perfect tense, the examiner might decide to ignore. But it's quite impossible to ignore an incorrect present simple tense question. That's something that we should have learnt in entry 2 or 3. So a bit more attention to that, please. Then we moved on to the presentation. The presentation, Emilia, you started your presentation. You gave all 3 points, very clear plan. You gave your opinion about how fashion, TV, etc. can influence people's lives. You also gave some examples about each opinion that you said. So you gave your opinion, and then you followed it with the reason to your opinion, and then you gave an example to each and every one of these. So that was a very powerful and very accurate presentation that you gave. That was very good. Teodora, you also gave a very powerful and very correct presentation. You did something very interesting. You gave your clear points and your plans within the first 10 seconds of your presentation, and that would leave you with 1 minute 50 seconds to elaborate, give your reasons, give your examples, and give your conclusion. So you got the plan in there in 10 seconds, which was really, really good. So you gave your opinion, you gave examples. Traditional clothes can tell about people's nationalities. You talked about, for example, the fact that people have to wear the correct clothes to, say, a birthday party, appropriate clothing to different occasions, and you finally gave your conclusion at the end. When you had to ask questions, Teodora, you said to Emilia, "I agree with you about clothes showing people's lifestyles, etc. Do you think someone with an expensive watch is a good person?" That might not be an appropriate question to ask, because I know we're talking about fashion, but this would be a question that would be more relevant to maybe, again, an entry 2 or entry 3 learner. The assessor, the examiner, wants to see a higher level question. So based on what Emilia said, maybe you could have chosen a more appropriate question, something along the lines of, what style do you adopt, Emilia, and how do you think people perceive you? So something along these lines would have been a lot more appropriate, I think, to a level 1 question. Emilia, once Teodora had finished her presentation, you asked some questions, and you asked a very interesting question, something that a lot of the people in your classroom had asked as well. The question was, can you recognize people from your country from what they wear? Your question was spot on, it was accurate, and it was very relevant, which was very good. and you elaborated a little further by giving examples. So you wanted to say, so are you sure if someone is Bulgarian, for example, you can tell who they are from their clothing? But again, Emilia, the forming of your question unfortunately had a few mistakes. Instead of asking, are you always sure, to make it a question, you said, you are always sure. So you're trying to ask a question, but you're giving the formation of a sentence. We need to substitute the question word with the subject, please, to make it a proper question. Next we move on to the listening, and both of you got all 4 questions correct. And then we moved on to the very final discussion. Pardon me. Emilia, you started the discussion with your opinion about people living in village, for example. There is more safety. You talked about your own opinion, and then you passed it over to Teodora. What do you think? Teodora, you mentioned your opinion as well, which was very good. Initially you started to say, I agree, and then you said, but I disagree. And that's quite contradictory, so let's make sure, do we agree or do we disagree? You gave further examples, Teodora. You elaborated, you explained further with your examples, which was very good. But one thing that both of you did, which I would suggest you change, is in the very last part of the exam, if you remember, there were 6 points that you had to talk about when someone wants to choose a place to live. About safety, about where they want to live, about these kind of things, and you started jumping from one to the next. The correct fashion to do this part of the test in the 4th part is, for example, if one of the points is safety, Emilia would have to talk about safety, give her opinion, maybe give a few examples, ask Teodora's opinion again about safety, both of you discuss safety, and then both of you move on to the next point. There's no point in Emilia talking about one thing, Teodora talking about something completely different. The examiner wants to see how both of you discuss one common point. Don't worry if you can't talk about all 6 of them in the time. That's not the important part. It's important that you're able to discuss each point together and discussing it, giving your opinions, etc. On the whole, for the very last part, the relevance of the question was very high. You gave some very good answers. Both of you passed, obviously. Both of you are strong students in that class. I was very happy. Very, very good communication in the very first part, which was your initial discussion. It was an area I think that you were quite familiar and comfortable to discuss, so it was very enjoyable for me when you were talking about fashion as well. So those little points, if you would take into consideration, again, that would be great. So the forming of the question, make sure that you've got your question words in the correct place. Make sure that when you are discussing and giving your opinion, that you pass the conversation on to your friend also, and ensure that whether you agree or disagree, it's clear. So the listener and also the examiner are sure and clear about whether you agree or disagree, and then give extra explanation and elaboration as well. I hope this feedback has been beneficial to you, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.